Nice.
I have a question.
Yeah, shoot, Joe.
So I was noticing when going over a report with a client that the summary, or at least in the settings that I have, is just a list of items from like significantly deficient all the way down to due diligence and note,
Uh-huh.
which I've noticed with the clients kind of makes it seem like there's 100,000 things that are wrong with the house. When sometimes, we just like to put a lot of information in there, or like this particular client wasn't there, they were out of town, so they asked for lots of pictures. So we gave them lots of pictures, but then it looked like 100 things were wrong. Where I've had it, like previous software, they just do significantly deficient and repair, and then you get the whole report from there. So it doesn't look like from the client side, like there's 100 million bad things wrong with the house.
Sure. Well, I mean, what a great question. That's a good leader into the whole modifier discussion because our saying at Scribeware is do what you like.
Yeah.
So you can totally set this up. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Cool. And welcome. We got Jamie coming in. That's awesome. Good to see you, man. He's logging in. And Josh, welcome. I'm still letting people in here, but that's a great question. So we'll kind of go over that and see if we can't get to the bottom of it. Find my Zoom controls so I can keep letting people in here. Josh, where are you out of?
Morgantown, West Virginia.
All right, cool. Welcome.
Thank you.
It really is fun getting people from all over the country. Love it.
So you're up there bumping against Jeff Davis, are you?
I am.
Good
I
man.
work for him.
Sorry. Oh, I'm saying congratulations.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. We're psyched to have you on here. It's great seeing people from all over. So, um, so you guys can see my screen. You see like my desktop here. So yeah,
Yes.
somebody emailed me the other day just asking about like he'd love to know how different scribers use their modifiers, and then Joe asked a great question about the summary page. So, I mean, let's go into settings and then observation modifiers. Right here is where you kind of control all this stuff. And this is where, you guys can all build your own sets of modifiers. So you can make as many of them. Some people use 3 of them. I've got tons of them, and I could unpack the logic of why I use mine. If you click on one of these and open it up, let's not do major concern. We could do due diligence items, and we can click on it, open it. You can change the color of it. You can give it a different color. But this is a big one, Joe, for you, is you can choose whether or not you want it to go to the summary page or not.
Yeah.
So if you want to have a summary page of just major concerns and repairs, that's fine too. So just you can do whatever you want. You can even include whether you want the media to go in the summary or not. Me personally, my theory is that I've got a ton of information in my report, and I kind of like to be able to print out a summary page and have it be like 6 pages. Because the
Mhm.
pushback you get, especially if you use a lot of pictures, is like, your report is 100 pages, and that is kind of a criticism. And so to me, I'm like, all right, well, you can just print the summary, and now you have like a 6-page report. And I think so that's why I don't put my media in the summary personally. But again, we want everybody to do what they want to do. We'd like it that everybody does it differently. But if you are getting pushback of like, oh, there's too much information in my summary, you can choose modifiers that just don't send them to the summary page. It's kind of a nice, simple solution there. I personally send a lot of my modifiers to the summary, but I think it doesn't do that. I mean, I don't get a lot of confusion. I mean, when you have one that says major concern, one that says repair, and one that says recommended maintenance, if one of them says improvement items or something, I think it's super clear. They're all color coded and kind of different. So I really love that when you have a lot of modifiers, I think it lets you put a lot of detail in a report and not confuse people. If you don't have those, then all the repairs and everything are all jumbled together. Now you really have no way of distinguishing between, an improvement item or a repair item. Does that make sense, Joe?
Mhm.
Cool. Yeah. And how about you guys? Anybody else set up? How have you guys? I mean, I could go down my modifiers. If you want, why don't I do that real quick, and then you guys could chime in. Probably most of us have some version of major concern. I mean, you kind of need that. And then, interestingly, I have my repair all the way down here. I have all this other stuff kind of first. I incomplete items to me is a really nice one for new construction. I think there's a huge difference between a build that has a bunch of incomplete items and a bunch of repair items, as far as like what that tells me about the builder and the builder's subs and stuff. So I love my incomplete one. This little group here, incomplete, partly completed, and completed items, is actually for re-inspections. And I kind of nestle them at the top. It makes it just easier for me when I'm re-inspecting, because they're just right there and it's easier for me to change it. But feel free to not use those. And if you don't do re-inspections, you probably don't need partly completed or completed, but I still think incomplete's one to consider. Re-inspection notes. So that's actually another one. So I've got 4 things here that are all to do with just doing re-inspections. And then I love this one, but I have one for homeowners association. And that's, I find, really helpful if I'm doing a condo. A good example would be like if it looks like the roof's at the end of its life. On a condo, they might have already raised all the money and they might have a new roofer scheduled out, or a roof scheduled, replacement next week, for all I know. I mean, you really have no clue. So I never felt comfortable calling like something like that on a condo a major concern, because I don't really have enough information. So now I can kind of, clean the dryer vent, clean the chimney, ask about a new roof, all that kind of stuff. I'll put under an HOA type comment, and I like that. And then probably most of us have some kind of repair. I mean, years ago, I didn't even have recommended maintenance, and I really prefer distinguishing between, recommended maintenance to me is like clean the gutters, and, even a paint job arguably is just maintenance and not necessarily a repair. It gets a little more subjective, but, cleaning out the drainage system, the dryer exhaust vent, all that sort of just basic maintenance stuff. I like to distinguish that from like a real repair item. That sounding familiar? A lot of you guys use modifiers like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
due diligence and recommended disclosure. To me, these are the same thing, but one's for a buyer and one's for a seller. When I started doing lots of seller inspections, I was like, well, I due diligence doesn't really work because you're selling it. So it was more like, hey, disclose about the buried oil tank and your insurance on it, and disclose about the last time you had an arborist out to prune the trees or whatever. So that's kind of why I came up with recommended disclosure. Monitor, I try to avoid monitor, but there's certain things that every once in a while one has to slip in for me. Do you guys use monitor a lot? I've had, there's conversations of like you should never use monitor as an item in a report. And there's a certain amount of that I agree with. I think it can be kind of a cop out, but I don't know. There's certain things like seasonal drainage around here, and it's the dry season, and it's like, well, I don't. You're gonna have to wait till it rains to know how big of an issue that might be, So, one of the things my friend Charlie always says about monitor that I think it's a good point is if you use monitor, it's probably professional to have like a time constraint of like, should you monitor this during the rainy season? Should you monitor it during the summer? Or, when are you, no one's going to just sit there like, put their life on hold and just stare at something. So having some kind of ground rules for it. Yeah, Mike.
One thing that we have found also, and keep in mind, we're using this stuff for a little bit of everything. It's not just for the home inspection. We're using it for our radon mitigation site visit before we even do a quote. We're using it for doing our mitigation, post-mitigation, to where we've got everything in a nice little report about that entire mitigation from start to end. And if we're challenged by the state, yeah, look, there's all them damn little stickers you said that weren't on there the last time you audited us.
Yeah.
Can't help it when the kid peels them off, right?
Yeah.
So we do some funny things over there on that side. And then like we deal with, we used to do a lot of roof inspections for a particular builder here. So we actually set up our modifiers to speak directly to that builder, as opposed to what we would use for the consumer and what have you. So I just want to throw that out there, because anything you can think of, you can use this for.
I love that, Mike. And I ended up with some that I've hidden that I've used for particular jobs even, and that, no, you're absolutely right. And the cool thing about this list that I'm showing you is if you can have a huge list, the only ones that'll show up in the report are ones you actually use in the report. So if I'm not doing a condo, I'm not going to have an HOA thing, there. So yeah, I love that point, Mike. Jamie, did you want to chime in here?
Yeah, a couple questions actually. So modifiers, I noticed on some people, I don't think your template you have it where people use multiple modifiers. When you do that, do the comments then go to multiple summaries?
So
Or
how I think
you
it's
set the summary.
yeah, Charlie is the one that has been most like I know for a fact that he does a lot of that, and he had to build his own. You can't tag multiple ones in Scribeware, so he actually built basically a little gunny sack that shows up in the bottom of all of his comments and then he can choose which ones apply to that particular thing. I do agree with his underlying premise that you often run into something that's like a safety item and an electrical item and something to monitor and I don't know. So I think he's technically right. I have avoided it because I just sort of feel like that starts getting confusing for the client more if there's too many of them.
Right.
And there's really no, the way Scribeware works, your summary is built off the modifier you choose. So it would kind of mess up the summary function if we allowed multiple to be used, but it doesn't mean you can't do what Charlie does. So I think there's another Scriber that made their own, like has a little safety one built. And we could do this, like we could build a little gunny sack and I'll show you what you mean. And you could sort of toggle on it that it's like, hey, this is a safety item. And it would just show up at the bottom of the comment, but it would function differently than how these function, if that makes sense.
Jeff Lease does that. That's who I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. He does that too.
My follow-up to that is, so I've got my template 80% there. And I am like thinking homeowner association. So a bunch of my inspectors are on this call, so they're probably happy to hear that too.
Yeah.
Patton's laughing at me. Sure. So my question though is homeowners association. I like that. If I add that, do I have to go back in and manually find all of the comments in the report that I want that to go to, or do we just do it on the fly as we're going?
You just do it on the fly, once you add it, it'll be available. And then when you bring up a comment and you have it as like a major concern, what you could do, like, let's say you have a comment that's like, the roof needs to be replaced. Well, you could actually copy that comment and like the condo roof needs to be replaced, save it as a whole new comment and label that one condo, or just toggle it over, to HOA and save it. Yeah, I would probably just do it as you work on it. I mean, that would be the easiest if you can,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
80% there.
It's super exciting, Jamie. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let me know if you need a hand. We could Zoom on it to help you get across the finish line. That's super exciting.
We will in the next week or two. I got a couple sort of formatting things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Happy to help out.
So how do you actually edit a setting and maybe even create a modifier?
Yeah, so let's do that. So one of the things, let me go through the list and then I'll hit that. So I also use improvement or upgrade, and I really like these. I mean, I use this all the time because the codes change all the time, and I'm not going to call some old thing a repair if it's like just older, the way they built it in the 80s or whatever. But, you kind of have to let the consumer know, I think, that like, hey, this was the older way of doing it, so improvement or upgrade, future project. I don't use it all that much, but when I use this for is like little cracks in the concrete driveway or something. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, you really don't have to fix that right now, but eventually it's going to fall apart and you'll have to deal with it. Anybody else have the thing? What's a finding that they like future project for? Anybody? I don't use it much, but I can't get rid of it. Every once in a while, I'm glad I have it. Energy efficiency, I like that. I mean, to me, is it a repair if you have the older code of insulation in the attic or something? I live in a place where there's a bunch of people that want to save energy, and so they really appreciate, like, hey, if you get a heat pump, that'll help, and you've got old insulation, and you should air seal your subfloor, and so I'll put little efficiency things in. Inspection notes, I just, for any little aside things, I made it my own limitation modifier. So if I can't get on the roof or the deck's too low to the ground, I can't inspect the framing, I'll have a limitation modifier. And then this one this green one I could probably get rid of. I don't actually need that anymore. And I'll show you how I hide that. This gray one, don't ever get rid of that. That's your description modifier, and that's actually a really important function, and we can go over how that works a little bit differently than the rest of them. And then I love the no modifier. The no modifier won't, that word no modifier won't show up. So that's the one you want to use if you just want text, like if you just want a text box, like with no formatting, all black and white, the no modifier. So that's kind of my list. What was the question was how you build them. So let's show that. We'll open up major concern here just real quick, because one of the ways you get rid of them is to hide a modifier. So that's right up here. When you open one up is where you hide it. The reason we don't have delete modifier is the modifier is kind of attached to a comment, and it's a logic thing, but it would like kind of screw up the way we manage the library if you were to delete them. So you basically just hide them, and then all of the major concerns, like if I had hidden this, things that are a default major concern in my library would come up and wouldn't sort of get like blasted out. I think I'd have to choose a different modifier at that point. But anyway, you can get rid of them by hiding them. This is actually a cool button here. Show the modifier even if there's no instances. So the reason we put this one in is in our summary page, sometimes I would have no major concerns and I would have, 15 repair items. Well, that's a pretty great inspection for me, no major concerns. But because the major concern modifier didn't show up because I didn't use it, it didn't, the weight of the repair became worse. Does that make sense? Because there wasn't like a worse category there. And this was a realtor that gave me this feedback, and I was like, you're kind of, I see what you mean. Like if you were a realtor and you'd read my report 100 times, you'd be like, oh, great, no major concerns. But for the average client who might have never read one of my reports, there was not like, hey, there's no major concerns here. So anyway, I thought that was good feedback. So we built a show even if no instances exist. So I only use that for major concern, but you might think about checking that on if you have some kind of a major one, just for that reason. I can show you what that looks like in a report. And then this is a really cool one. I don't know if we have any real radicals on here who want to tilt at windmills, but one or two scribers over the years have wanted to build a report that's a summary only report. So it's like just a summary page, and you can actually not include the modifier in the report, and that would like, it's sort of hard to explain, but then the report wouldn't show up, right? It would just be a summary. So you would toggle that off, and then you'd want to include the media in the summary. And so that would be a way of building a summary only report. Pretty cool example of how customizable it all is. And then obviously each one of these, you can do a whole color, and you can even like use the little key to get your color code if you wanted. If you understand how all that works. And then we probably should have more of them, but we at least give you a decent number of little icons you can use for sort of giving your modifier a look. So let's go hide a modifier. I built this one for a template that I no longer need. So I'm going to open it up, and I can just hide this modifier. Now it's kind of gone from my list. If I want to go up in the top here, I can hit show hidden, and that'll bring any hidden ones back. There, I got that one back. So I'll toggle that off, and now they're gone. Now this is another kind of new feature that, God, I wish I'd had this years ago, but you can save modifier per template. So for Mike Patton, who's doing all these different types of things, he could have, a roof report specifically for a builder. He could save that as a template, and then he could actually change. In my case, I don't think I have a template at the moment that has different modifiers, so I'll using the same ones, but you can start creating separate lists of modifiers per template, which is really pretty cool. That way you could reduce your list, if that makes sense, so great if you're doing sewer scopes and radon and WinMits or I don't know, whatever. If you have a bunch of different ancillary services, that's now no longer a limitation. Let's see. And I think add new lets you obviously just do a new modifier. I think someone asked, sorry, it took me a while to get to your question. Someone asked how you make a new one. So you hit add new, and then you can give it a new name. I know we're kind of, try to make the report read really well, but sometimes if there's one versus multiple, you might have like repairs or repair items. So you can have a plural name. It'll make sense when you read the finished report why we do what name and plural name. You can give it a description, and then you can give it a color, and here's all that stuff. So that makes sense, guys, on being able to add modifiers. So yeah, I would love, any feedback you have. I love hearing people making their own and doing different things with these. These have solved a lot of problems for me over the years. Kind of what Mike Patton was saying. Sometimes I get odd jobs, and I'll actually make a modifier just for like a particular job. If you're doing commercial work, it can really help solve a bunch of problems. So it's a good thing to be familiar with.
Would be cool, like construction draws. You could have a modifier that says approved for funding or not approved for funding, like that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, no, that's a super cool idea. I mean, at some point too, and I wonder if this would tie into modifiers. We have I've always wanted to have spreadsheet functionality in Scribeware, so that it would let us do more like for commercial type work, you could have a cost analysis built into your report, and we have plans for that. We will have to install a new text editor, which sounds minor, but I think is actually mildly traumatic. It's like these are the things that cause us to drink here in the motherland. But anyway, that's you could then have a modifier of summary cost items or something conceivably, because I think they would be attached to a comment. So that I've been thinking about how that might work, which would be pretty cool. So hopefully we'll have spreadsheet functionality at some point here. I don't know when we're gonna get to it. I don't know why this one popped back up again. Let's open it up. I'll hide it again. So anybody else use modifiers in some other way that I don't, or have any comments on these? Or
real quick, I'll throw something out there. I've not used it here. Years ago, we did an inspection, large old home, and the guy came back to me and says, I need some of this stuff in safety. You've got it all in repair. I said, well, we've got safety items mentioned. He says, that chimney that's 4 stories up in the air, it's got loose brick in it, right? And you said at least one's came off the roof, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I delivered an email and someone said, are you kidding me right now?
Just gonna delete. Oh, thanks,
so
Joe. Yep.
So does that become
What?
now?
Someone just said, are you kidding me?
Sorry
right
about
now?
that, Mike.
No, no problem on my end.
Got her muted. Yep.
But in that case, we would have, for this purpose here, we would have combined those two, saying repair and safety, because the chimneys need to be repaired. They probably need to be taken down and rebuilt. But if it's a safety, to his point, it's already thrown one brick. So it's not just a repair conversation anymore. It turns into a safety and a repair conversation.
Yep. No, that's so true. And it's tricky. Let's go in. Let me open up let's just start a new report. I think that's actually a great conversation, because safety is a hard one. I've never used it because you have, it breaks all the modifiers apart. You could have major concerns that are safety items. You could have repairs. You could have maintenance. A lot of improvement items are safety, right? Because it's like, hey, these are the old way we did stairs, and so now you have this huge list. And I do find for the consumer, it's hard to distinguish. I mean, to me, when I'm thinking safety, there's the covers missing on the electric service ungrounded conductors. To me, that's a big safety thing. Somebody touches those and they're dead. And that's different from like the stairs are done to the 1980 stairs where there's like a gap, a 5-inch gap in the guard, and yet if you lump both of those under safety, that's kind of tricky because you can't distinguish very well. And does that make sense, Mike? So it's one of the reasons I've always been like afraid to use safety is like it's such a broad category, and like in a way like 90% of what we do is safety things, other than moisture control.
So you're more than 50 miles away from me, right? We've had this conversation.
Yep. Yeah.
So now we will lump safety just to address what you were saying just now, because it qualifies that this is a safety concern. Is it calling for immediate action? Maybe not. Maybe it is, but yet it's something to be aware of, just like GFCI's 1950s house. It's never been upgraded. Yeah, we reference that as a safety upgrade, but is it wrong where if it was in a modern house today, we'd say it's wrong that you don't have these, which is a repair / a safety item in that conversation. So yeah, it's however you can wrap your head around it. It's where I've come across.
No, I'm totally with you, Mike. And so here's been my idea. We've never done it, and Steve gets mad at me because I keep giving him ideas that make this little toolbar longer and longer on the top, and it's driving him crazy because the toolbar is getting too big. But what I'm showing you guys, so I'm a pest inspector, and in Washington State, we always used to embed a pest inspection within a report. And so how I do that is I have my little bug icon, and we should go over this. I'll show you how I do the whole thing here, but every comment for me, because I've toggled that I'm a pest inspector, I have this little bug and I can turn it red, I can turn it on or off. And once I turn it on, it creates a separate summary page of just pest items. And so I'm sort of automatically building a pest report within my home inspection report.
Oh.
And I've always thought it would be super cool to be able to have a little safety, like a little cross or something, medical cross kind of thing here, so that safety items could be handled in the same way. Because the reality of safety is just what we said. There's some of them are major concerns, some of them are repairs, some of them are improvements, and maybe, some of your other modifiers. So then you'd have your own safety summary page, What do you think about that, Mike? Would that be a solution?
Well, for us, you all don't use the MPMA 33. You all have Washington Standard, right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay. When you jump on the MPMA 33, which is probably more widely used, yes, the idea that you could auto-populate your MPMA 33 form, which we need to talk about later, that right there, every underwriter I've ever dealt with, they don't want to cross-reference from the MPMA back to the inspection report. Yeah, that's like a total taboo, because now the client has to be prepared to put the entire inspection report in front of the underwriter.
Yep.
You don't want to go there.
That's right.
So with that modifier there, all I can say is done with that the ability to be conscious of that as you move forward. I think, sure, why not?
Yeah. Well, so with the pest inspection, that's a whole conversation we could have. In the only people in Washington State who ever ask for a WPMA 33 are the banks, and it doesn't come up much, but every once in a while a bank wants one. So a Washington State pest inspection form includes conducive conditions. And in a rainforest, that's like everything, right? I mean, it's like the gutters leak, I mean, it's like anything that makes water, right, in any capacity makes the building wet is technically part of a pest inspection here. Whereas your WPMA 33 is really like a termite form. I mean, right. You could arguably come up with a couple other things, but I mean, it's mostly like, are there termites here or aren't there? So
you got your wood destroying insects, but yeah, it's not a WDO.
That's right. It's much more of like a WDI form, right? If you
WDI,
talk about
not a WDO.
That's right. Yeah. So, and if there's any new inspectors on here, feel free to, raise your hand if we're losing you here. But that's good distinguishing stuff here. So anyway, I mean, that's kind of why for me, I have most of my reports could have 10 or 15 pest items on them, because they're like, hey, the gutters are clogged, and the siding needs to be repainted, and there's wood decay in the deck, and there's wood decay here, because rot is sort of omnipresent out here. So very different than the WPMA 33. And I don't, this would be a Steve question, but it would be amazing, obviously, if you could somehow toggle a little button and have it show up in the WPMA 33. That's probably pretty darn tricky, but I don't, that's more of a Steve question.
I just need personal time and a lot of love on how to make my wonderful WDI MPMA form work.
Okay.
I'm still lost there, so we'll come back to that offline away from this at another time.
Yeah, or well, let's see what other questions come up. I'm not an expert on the PDF. We kind of need, I don't know if there's any Florida guys on here. The Florida people are the ones that use the PDF thing the most, but you'll start using it a lot, Mike, with the MPMA 33. So
correct, and that's we're still using another software just to create our WDRs.
Well, you shouldn't need to do that. So, why don't we finish on modifiers and see if there's other questions? But that's actually not, we haven't, I don't think I've ever touched on the whole PDF functionality, so we could talk about that. Does anybody have any more questions on this, on sort of modifiers, how to use them? Obviously, you start a new comment, you can click on the repair here. This is all available on mobile. You can kind of choose whatever you want.
You got something in chat there from Jamie.
Let's see. Look, I don't have my chat thing. You read it to me, Mike? I can't find my little chat because
Dylan, can you show new users how the yellow double click works for quick locations, but also for bulleted lists? Then he goes on, not so much how to build it, but how it is used and how it looks when the report is previewed and published.
And are we talking, it sounds like the text replacement, basically?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So text replacement is a huge topic, and it's because you can do so much with it, So why don't, I think I'm just trying to think of the best way to show it, but maybe we should show, let me show you, should I show a few different ways in which I have used them? Because it really is like it kind of goes on and on. There's a lot, it's actually super cool. So just yesterday I did an inspection, and the trees were growing up over the house, like always. But in this case, the trees, a lot of them started on the neighbor's property. We all been there? I mean, I don't think I'm the only one, but like to me, it's like that's a different type of comment. So my old way of doing things is I had the prune trees off the house comment, and then I had another comment, which was prune the trees off the house. By the way, these might be on the neighbor's yard. So I had to have two separate comments. Now I just have one. So here's I'm in my grounds, trees and vegetation, prune trees and vegetation off house. Here's my little comment. I've been changing my template to these all caps blue titles, which I'm becoming really enamored of. And we could review a report if you guys want to see that. Maybe we'll do that in a minute. And then all of this stuff is like, hey, prune the trees off the house. Out here, we've got the Norwegian roof rat, which can jump 6 feet. So if you want to keep those out of your attic, you got to get the vegetation 6 feet off the building.
Dylan, we have those Norwegian roof rats, but they can jump 7 feet.
Well, out in Chicago, they're in training, I think. Yes. You guys have the Olympian ones. Well, they can probably jump 7 feet here. Who knows? But yeah, that's funny.
They're eating all our power lines right now.
Are you kidding me?
My whole city has gone around cutting down all the rat trees because they took down like 2 transformers in my suburb.
Oh my gosh, what a nightmare. So you guys see at the bottom of this comment, I've got the little pen highlighted here. And I'll show you how we build these, but that will stay hidden unless I choose something from it. So this is like, if your whole objective, which is kind of mine in life these days, is to have fewer comments in your library, this is how it go through your brain and think about like, oh yeah, I used to have 7 different comments for all the iterations of one thing. Now you can have one comment and then just simply click on this. And in this case, please note the trees hanging over this house may originate on the neighbor's property. So click that, and now boom, I've handled it with the click of a button, and then what's cool is, let's say I'm on a job and I need to add another one. So I could edit this, and now I can edit it. And I say house here, and I've been trying to wean myself from that. So we'll call this building. And then how about this one? Please note that, and Where I am, there's all these alders, and it's really pretty cool. The alders are the tree that comes back after logging, and they grow for 30 years and rot and fall over, and their whole thing is to like become good soil for like the big trees to grow. Isn't that amazing? I mean, that's the whole purpose in life, is like 30-year fertilizer. But they like grow huge and then rot and fall over. So these things are always like falling all over the place. So anyway, here, this would be something where I might like really jump up and down, because every once in a while I find something that looks really unsafe. So now I can come up here and hit save. What I might do is get rid of that. Now that comment's gone. I'm going to come up to my 3 dots up here and hit update library. And now the next time I use this, I'll have it all sort of ready to roll with now both comments. And
so Dylan,
yeah,
can you show us, do a preview of what that looks like with no comments clicked, and then what it looks like if we were gonna, you don't have to publish it, but preview it so that people can see.
Let's preview this sucker.
Something clicked. Incidentally, while we're waiting for that, that whole building and home thing, as I'm writing my template up, it is almost all of those are yellow, and they can select, what do you call them again? Multiple
just text replacement. So you
text
can just
replacement.
Yeah, that's a nice way to go. Yep.
It's like home, house, building, structure,
unit,
whatever.
Yeah, no, that's a really smart way to do it. Because we get a lot of questions about commercial templates, and to me, unless you're really all in on commercial and doing a lot of it, and you are doing it to a different standard than your residential, I just don't see the need to have a different template. I don't do tons of commercial, but I do, I don't know, 5 or 10 commercial jobs a year, and I can just make my template work for that. That's a whole other thing. So here we'll go into the complete report, and here's that comment. Now you don't see the pen at all, right? Everybody with me? That the pen just isn't there, and then if we go back in, and we could toggle one, we'll toggle both of them on, and then we'll preview again. So now you can see we've got the little pen, and you don't need to use the pen. You can actually just have the text replacement. I'm going to show you how that works real quick, so you guys can kind of see how you do this. So right now, how I built this, if I edit this, see how so the first thing is I allow multiple selections, and then I'm using bullets. So this is kind of the basic form of a gunny sacked comment, where I have this little title area up here, and then I can make a list. Watch what happens if I delete that little pen and I save it. We'll update the library. Let me open these up and just get rid of them. So now when I bring it back up, it's just these little dots there. Same effect. You don't really need the pen. Let's select them and see what this preview looks like.
So the point on that is, if you see yellow in there, there's a text replacement, and you should be maybe clicking in there to look for it.
That's right. Look at what you got. And I'll keep going. There's way more stuff we can do here. Oh, we got Mike on here from Kauai. Hey, Mike.
Hey, how's
How
it?
are you, man? Good to see you.
Good.
So here it actually kind of looks a little better in some ways without the pen. Whatever you like. Do what you want, But I love this ability. Like it's to me, the light bulb is permanently on, and I'm going through my template slowly, and wherever I had 4 to 8 iterations of one comment, even like stoppers of like, fix this stopper. You could have a general comment, but then if you want to be more specific of like, oh, the stopper's missing, the stopper's disconnected from the handle, the stopper's, damaged or cracked, or, you just keep adding them and do it like that. And a lot of this just depends on how specific you want to be. I have a mild disease of always wanting to be really specific, and it's probably bad business, but anyway, it makes me, fiddle with my template endlessly. So, cool.
Dylan, is there a way to differentiate if you have like the same comment, but say like you you want to differentiate between like a singular item or multiple like items. Like if there's 3 furnaces in the house and you have the same comment, but it has to be different grammatically for multiple furnaces. Is there a way to
Yeah.
have the same comment
Yes,
in
there's a
different ways?
couple of things that's a very good question. I like that. And it opens up, it's a long conversation, but let's actually
Okay.
go there. We'll go back to text replacement in just a minute, but because this is actually good. So there's so many different ways to handle it. So if in my mind, you know, and I'd love feedback especially from veterans here, but let's say I've done houses that have 3 heating systems, but they were all put on at the exact same date and they're all the same. You know, then to me, I might use one heating systems section, you know, and by that I'm just gonna like describe them and I might put in like 3 data plates up here of all 3 of them, you know, and just kind of use one section. But you know, what if you have 3 furnaces and they're all like different ages, and you might have 2 gas ones and 1 electric one or something? Then I'm going to come up here to the 3 dots and I'm going to hit copy section, and I'll probably, you know, call this heating system main floor. And then I'm going to go down to this new one that I've built. I'm going to call this heating system basement, right? And you could go on from there. So I know I'm not fully answering your question, Ben, but to me, this was like the start of it is just kind of, sorry, I don't know how that got in there. Is just and water heaters are the same way. If they're all the same age, I'll often use one section because it's just faster. And I don't think the client cares that much whether you use one section or 4 or whatever. But it's hard if there's 3 or 4 different water heaters and they're all totally different brands and different ages, then I will often make a different water heater section for each one. I'll do the same thing with decks. You know, if they're similar, I'll roll them into one thing. Sometimes I did a house the other day that had like 6 decks and they were all shot. And I just made one comment that's like, hey, all the decks here are messed up, and fix them all. And then I probably use like old deck rebuilding needed, or I probably use this one, old deck repair replace. So then we get to Ben's comment of like, you can use text replacement. Here's Jamie's point. This is yellow. So anytime you see yellow in your template, you should be like, all right, that's something I can click on and change. Repairs are needed to the decks on this building. If I want to, I could just say deck, or I could say balconies or porches or porch. So you can obviously, and it looks like you can choose one. So decks and balconies. So it could hit close, and repairs are needed to the decks and balconies on this building. So using text replacement can allow you to mold one comment that can work singularly or plural. And you know, these tend to be fraught with the need for little bits of editing. It's surprisingly difficult to like craft the sentence so that it works just right with these, but you know, that's how I try to configure a lot of my comments, so that again, I don't want to have I used to have to do that. I'd have like, you know, multiple water heaters versus one, and I'm still weeding some of that stuff out of my template, but now my goal is like, I just want one comment wherever possible. I want to have fewer comments, and then I don't have to spend any time looking for them. So that's how you do that text replace. Does that make sense, Ben, on that side of it?
Yep.
Cool.
Hey, Dylan, can I make a
Yeah.
comment there? I threw this out on Facebook the other day, and it's what started my conversation with the tables. Is like, I did a commercial job yesterday that I had no flipping business doing by myself under some circumstances, but I did it. And right now I'm waiting on all my pictures to load. We can go back to that conversation. But I've got 16 different heating cooling systems.
Jesus.
So we will tabulate those heating cooling systems by age and date. And then we'll use a snippet tool and pull that over out of an Excel sheet just to put a chart in there, or create a PDF. Since we got 34 entries, we may just create the PDF and put in with it. And then we will basically take a section and make it nothing but photographs of all those systems with the data plates and all, just as our backup. And if you really want it, customer, there's all your pictures and stuff with it. But we'll tabulate it all based on, and here again, this is kind of the thought process is 5 years, you're probably good. 10-year-old equipment, because it's all residential except for one, you're at the end of life. 15 in, you're budgeting for immediate replacement.
Yep.
So when you were talking the table there a minute ago, that's what my perception goes through for the tabling, rather than just doing a cut and paste or creating a PDF and bringing it in.
Yep. I'm just going into you brought up something that I did for so you guys can see everything right on here. This was actually a chapter I built, Mike, for for doing apartments.
Yep.
And so I have one chapter that's like everything that you would have in a single unit.
Yep.
You know, and then if you got an 8-plex, you copy it 8 times. If you know, so and it's probably still too detailed. I need to kind of pare it down some more. But you know, I did come up with like a little check mark thing of like midlife, older, you know, and I actually had modifiers associated this when I used them so that they could kind of grade things. But you could build modifiers for commercial jobs that would be like next 5 years, next 10 years, next 15 years. You know, and then it would make a summary page of all those items so they could see what maintenance is needed on those time frames. So that would be a cool idea for like a commercial sort of, you know, investor type template. So think about that on a modifier side. That might help automate some of that. And then a spreadsheet could then be built off your Scribeware summary page almost. You know, you could look at your Scribeware summary page and build the spreadsheet from that. What would be really cool is if like, let's say this recommended maintenance for one of those things, and it's like a 5-year item. If we had a little table and you could be like, you know, $40,000 or whatever.
Hey, when you gonna get AI on here to where when I take a photograph, it automatically populates my serial number and my date of that piece of equipment?
Yeah,
and it does the inspections for us too.
Amen, bro. I don't have to leave the house.
Well, then we might be out of a job. Maybe
this software sucks.
Maybe
there's a bunch of them that do that, Dylan.
Yeah, that do what?
Oh, that do the AI already. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean it's all coming at us. I mean, it's like it's really almost unavoidable. I mean, it's not that hard for us to like incorporate something like chat GTP in there. I mean, you obviously have to be online, but I don't know. Some of that stuff really freaks me out. I'm not a big fan of some of it. The stuff that, just to finish the conversation on AI, what we actually would love to do and are contemplating is a lot of sorting of comments. So like personally, I don't want AI to write my comment for me. I think that's insanity. And I don't, I feel like I know more than a goddamn computer when it comes to houses. Maybe it's my own ego there, but like that's how I want it. On the other hand, like once I take a picture of stucco, it pisses me off that I have to go find a stucco comment in my library. Like I've already got the comment written somewhere. So, you know, the computer ought to be like, hey, that looks like a picture of stucco. Do you want it to go with this comment? You know, and start auto sorting our pictures to associate them with comments that we use all the time. And that's actually very doable. So that's sort of on our radar of something, but whatever. We've got a few other fish to fry before that. But wouldn't that be nice? Like if it, like you didn't have to sort through comments anymore and I mean, cause I don't feel like I need AI to write a comment for me. I already have a library full of way more comments than I need. And so what I need is like the thing to just sort it all for me. So anyway, that's kind of some of our thoughts. But Mike Patton, is that idea helpful of maybe like a modifier for something like that? I don't know. Think about it. Maybe it's helpful.
Well, we're getting to where like on commercial stuff, we're trying to really tabulate and break it down to where it's just usable information, as opposed to all the glorious, wonderful pictures that we're so used to in residential. Yeah. So we're kind of looking at it in a different way.
Yeah. I wonder if you built a template and even had like modifiers that were like dollar figures of like, you know, things that are in the $0 to $5,000 or 5,000 to 20,000.
That's a very good point there, particularly for multifamily housing, because usually we're trying to put it in there that anything under $500 does not go in our report period.
Yeah.
And go up from there. And then whenever you have a investor, we will actually have that conversation and we'll build our scope back to what they're asking for.
That's right.
So if they say we want $1,000 threshold, it'd be great to go ahead and move that to $1,000 threshold. Or we work in an ABC category. A means good, B means needs paint, C means got it.
Yeah, then you could milk modifiers just for them. That's what I've done. I've made modifiers just for a job. No, that's exactly it. And you know, I don't do a ton of that, but in my experience, a lot of those investors just want a number. You know, they'd be happier with a spreadsheet than all these pictures and stuff. It's definitely a different deal than residential. A lot of them seem to like having the pictures in the report for when they go to flip a unit, and they can like pull it up and just sort of get a visual idea of what it was like before, you know, they go flip it or whatever. But in general, other than that, the purchase decision is usually like, give me a number, you know. So yeah, interesting. So can I keep going on text replacement? If I'm trying to keep track of some things we're doing. So the other way that you can do text replacement is a full-blown gunny sack. So that's what this comment is. And this basically, if we were to preview this right now, we'll look in the deck section. There's going to be almost nothing here. All it says is deck repairs needed, examples of specific observations noted during inspection include. So that comment is like, you know, all this yellow is hidden, but this is really neat. I mean, this is one deck comment that in theory could be all you need to write all of your deck comments forevermore. So I'll click on the top part and I can choose, hey, tune-up repairs are needed, extensive repairs are needed, or rebuilding is needed. And in my experience, most decks fit into one of those three categories. The other category is it's brand new, and then it's either new and it's poorly done, or it's new and it needs repairs, or it's new and it's actually great and they have to pick me up off the ground because I can't believe it. Right? But so, I mean, mostly you're in these three categories. So we could choose one like rebuilding needed. And then particularly if you're a newer inspector, this is pretty cool. It's like, well, what should I be looking for on a deck? Well, you know, the rim joist, you know, the rim material at the edge of the deck is loose and needs to be secured. How about the deck stairs? I've got a bunch of, you know, over-notched stringers and rotting stair stringers, localized wood decay, inadequate guardrail and an incomplete guardrail, a loose guardrail, and openings exceed 4 inches. It's really hard to add detail as quickly as that in almost any other capacity, and you could be dumping 50 pictures in here if you want, whatever you feel like. So this is the idea. And if you I think my template with this library or this comment, I think almost everybody would have this comment. So, and you can save this comment into your library if you want to do that. That would be a whole other conversation of how you do that. It's actually not that hard. You come up here and you edit in library. And what you want to do is change the library category here. So this is in my narrative template, and then it's decks, porches, and balconies. So the thing that is tricky is if you just go and do this in your own template, if you're not using mine, you're not going to see this comment. So how you need to be able to see this comment is you go under your library tab up in the middle here. And this is a great thing to know about if you show all categories up here. But that's gonna, like, we ship with a sewer scope template. So like if you wanted to take those sewer scope comments and move them into your library, this would be how you do that. So now I'm gonna see everything. So I got all kinds of stuff in here. I could go to this deck gunny sack comment. I can come up here, I can edit the library. And now when I look under my categories, I've got millions of things up here because it's not just my template anymore. I've got all kinds of, I don't know what 8.1 is even from. It might be from like a Trek template or something. But I could hit, you know, if I wanted to put this in this 81 gas leak testing results, I could update the existing category or add as a new library entry, and that'll basically copy and paste that comment into another library category. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's very powerful for organizing all of your comments and stuff. Pretty cool. But then I like what we automatically do is when you're working in a template, we do not show all categories. And we do that really specifically so that it works faster. Otherwise, if you've got multiple templates, everything gets bogged down because you got too many comments in the way.
Dylan.
Yep.
Question for you.
Ed, how you doing, Ed?
How you doing, Dylan? question for you. So let's say on your template you're looking at exteriors and you want to improve the grade, improve the tree pruning, and it's all in the same section. Is there a way to make it that it doesn't show up as 2 or 3 improves, that it almost combines the improve into one?
Yeah, under one comment, like under vegetation. Can you give me the example again? Like,
Okay, let's say vegetation and exterior or something along those lines, and you have improved the grade, trim back the trees, something simple.
yeah.
Is there a way to auto combine the two, that when you put the report, it's not 2 improves underneath the same section?
Yeah, here's how you need to do it. One, this is a great question, and this all gets to like consolidation. Let's author this comment because this is super cool. The one thing that breaks it up in my template a bit is I've got things specifically under drainage and site that are different than my grounds, trees, and vegetation. So that messes me up a little bit. It's not a big deal, but like I can easily write one comment to handle it. But do you put it in grounds or do you put it in drainage? So that's a conundrum that you'll face depending on how you've organized your template. But here's how we could do it for the comment. Like let's ignore this stuff for a minute and just write a really multifaceted comment, because this gets it a way that Charlie and I built this template that we call the skeleton template, where I think we have a library that you could write everything you need to do for any home inspection report. And I think it was 75 comments. And that's all you need. That's it. So here's like how you would do that, right? So I would do something like repairs and improvements needed to the grounds. So now I'm big picture, right? I'm not saying drainage or trees. I'm just saying like grounds in general. Observations noted during inspection include, I'm going to put a little colon here. I'm going to give this my little caps. So what I wrote here is what I would call a parent comment. So let's go get some pictures that we can play with here. We'll use that one. All right. The ground is sloping toward the building at the west side. Correct.
So you're going to use it in the photo part and edit the comments in the photo to do this?
Well, there's different ways, but that's how I'm going to do it for this one. So
okay, I got you.
To me, the idea here would be I wrote a parent comment. You're going to take a picture and caption it, and you'll just put the caption, and it could be all kinds of stuff. Prune the trees off the house, see the entry side. And so for me, I would just use voice to text, speak those in. I'd put my cursor here. I'd hit the little magic button here with the mountains and make my bulleted list.
Okay.
But now you've got one comment and it's like, hey, here's a bunch of things to do to the grounds. And
okay. I would
go ahead.
I was thinking more like if you had like your favorites and you found 2 or 3 of your favorites that you use all the time, and you just happen to click on your favorites, that it was the same thing and it happened to be an improve. Is there any way to, without dragging a comment into the next comment, that you didn't end up with multiple improves in the same section?
Yeah, so I mean, couldn't you, would a gunny sack also be a solution for you here then, so that you could then
it might be. It was just one of those, like, sprinklers is the other one I end up getting a lot of, like, due diligence, make sure it's checked, make sure the backflow is checked, make sure it's this. And when I do my auto favorites, it ends up showing up as 4 different things, but a gunny sack would probably cover that. I gotta work on that.
Let's do that. So so think of it this way. What I built here is a parent comment. You could populate the detail of a parent comment with photo captions or with a gunny sack. So I just showed you the photo captions, but now let's build a little gunny sack. I put my cursor here. I hit the little text replacement right up here. and we're going to allow multiple selections and bullets. And now I'll start pasting the list, but we could start adding more things, right? Like the sprinklers are watering the side of the house, right? Whatever. I mean, you could keep adding stuff in here.
I
And
got you.
then when you choose it, what you're going to do is just double click on that and go down and start hitting the things that apply, you know. But that would
I
let
got
you
you.
gun, and that's exactly why we call it a gunny sack. You've like gunny sacked 3 or 4 or 5 repair items into one comment. And so, but I do think the trick is you need to write a parent comment that's kind of vague, you know. It's like, hey, here's a bunch of things on the outside of the building that need to be fixed, you know. And then once you have that parent comment, you know, you could either use the gunny sack technique or the photo captions to bullet technique. And they both have advantages and disadvantages. The way I mentally think of it is a deck is a good example. I actually don't use my gunny sack on decks very much because decks tend to have problems that to me are very specific. It's like the third post on the southwest corner is rotted. The west guardrail is rotted. I don't know. There's always like super specific things, and I can't pre-make that. It's easier for me to speak in what's wrong. Another good example would be interior doors. It's like, oh, you know, the hinge is loose at the closet door on the northwest bedroom. Like, how you gonna, you can't pre-make those. That'll drive you insane. So that I prefer voice to text to that. Whereas stairs are actually often the comments are really similar. It's like the guard's loose, the handrail's loose, the handrail doesn't return into the walls. So I use my stair gunny sack all the time, where certain things I use the photo captions to bullets feature. That makes sense, Ed?
Yeah, thanks. In the end, I think a gunny sack would do it.
A gunny sack will do it. And this is just a little light gunny. I mean, compared to that huge deck thing I showed you guys, this is really kind of basic. The deck one's hard to build. I mean, that one's
Hey,
and I'll show you.
Dylan.
Yeah, shoot.
So I have gunny sacks in my report, and I have a question that they might want to know the answer to. So I've noticed if say like some of these top like orange automated drop downs have the same like gunny sack report, it won't put 2 of them up, which is really nice, but it won't necessarily like add those comments. So say the stair rail is loose, I click on loose, that will pop the gunny sack up. But if I put loose and disconnected or loose and using the wrong material, those aren't going to necessarily auto-populate. I'm still going to have to go back down to that comment and click on all of those extra little things in the gunny sack. So
Yeah.
there's still some manualness part of it, but you are getting for the consumer it all in one big chunk, and it does look really good on the other end. Like it makes it simplified and clean. The only downside is you have to comment on the pictures a lot to associate what the error is. So you want to make sure you're commenting on your images a lot.
Yep.
Thank
And
you.
that's great feedback, Joe. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, Dylan, on the comment, don't delete that comment you're hovering over. You're scaring me. Add a one-off comment to that bullet list for us to show us how that's done, so that a new comment that says.
So you can the easiest is to edit it, but it's actually why it's a good question, Jamie. It's one of the reasons why I like the photo captions to bullets are a little more flexible than the gunny sack. So if I want to add a gunny sack, I might be able to do it like this and then add the bullet from this way. If you go to the top, now you can start typing in.
You can't just put your cursor after right where it's there and hit the return and it'll add a bullet point?
I think you need to hit shift and return. You do. You need to hit shift, return, and then do a bullet. So that's actually great for everybody to know. So then you can add them below. So that's fine. And another cool thing you can do is watch this. You can delete, and let's say improvements. And then you could come here. Oops. I need to hit shift and then down repairs.
Or sort them out.
Yeah, so you can even within a gunny sack start distinguishing repairs and improvements all within one comment, if that helps. You could also highlight these and turn them into numbers and then just go and delete back. There you go. So pretty flexible, you know. I mean, this does take, you know, Joe's point, like you got to click on some things and you got to, you know, but I don't know. That is life with writing a report. Till we get the AI to just write the report for you.
The key I like there is you're not locked into just because all those selections are there. If it's not a selection that, it's a yellow house and you want to write down the yellow side, it needs to be repainted. You can build a comment and then you can go in and type in the yellow side manually for that one time you need it.
Yep, that's right. Yep. And the takeaway from a workflow standpoint on this is I think one thing that'll help you is the sooner you can recognize when you're dealing with multiple defects with the same system. I try to just take pictures and caption it. And even in the captions for me, as much as anything, I'm just like, all right, remember where all these things are. And then I can just go back to it at the end and make one comment once I know I've gathered all the data. And a good example is like, how about lost seals on windows? I mean, as soon as you see one of those, you don't know whether you've seen one or you've seen 50 of them, and you're not going to know until you're done. And so, so I think let's look at how I do that. Let's go into my Windows. I'm afraid I'll have to go here pretty soon. Under Windows. See, look, I just made it. I got sick of even being so. How about, do you guys do some where there's like three lost seals, 2 failed energy coatings, and then a cracked window and some missing hardware? So I sometimes I don't even use my lost seals. I just say window repairs needed. And now I dump all that stuff in there. It's like, here's all the things to fix with your windows. The hardware is missing. There's, sash ropes, I mean, whatever, and then take pictures and caption them. So, this technique of the parent comment, I just love it. And it's fewer comments. And once you get your game down with being able to caption things relatively quickly, it really makes report writing fast. And the cool thing is you're being really specific. How else do you keep track of, like, there's 2 lost seals in the main bedroom at the west face and 4 lost seals on the east face or whatever, right? I mean, you can be really granular if you can get just a little bit of voice to text game going. It helps. But you can see, I didn't delete all my lost seal comments. Sometimes I use them, just the lost seal comments. But more and more, it's like once I get a whole list of like, well, there's lost seals, but there's other types of repairs, window repairs needed, boom. And if there's a ton of them, I'll just switch it and call it a major concern.
Yeah, how many times have you finished up on the second floor, you come walking back down to the first floor and oops, there's a window seal.
There's another one.
Sometimes it's because the weather changed.
That's right. Yeah. And so in a way, what these become then is like Charlie has called them photo buckets. Like once you select something like that, you can just keep going to it and dumping more pictures in there, and then just kind of finish off the comment once you're actually done with the inspection and you know how many window defects you found. So hopefully you guys like that, but that's been one that's both helped me write better reports and move more quickly. Great questions, guys. You guys, hopefully everyone's getting a few little takeaways here. Anybody got
Dylan, one other question.
Yeah, shoot.
If you do voice to text on a photo comment and you got a lot of misspellings, do you have to fix it in the photo, or can you do it once you do the picture comment? Will it automatically change?
No, that's a good question. So if we go back to, where was that comment that we wrote, to this one where I used the voice to text. Let me get rid of this real quick. And let's open one of these and let's put some gobbledygook that's like a spelling mistake. I'll save that. We'll go like this. So I could go and fix that, but it will not fix it back here. So what I will often do is make my bulleted list. I'll see the spelling mistakes, but that'll tell me where to go chase them in my captions. I can usually, figure it out relatively quickly. I'll come and I'll like fix my spelling mistakes, hit save, and then I usually just delete it and remake the whole list. I just find that easier, but there's, different techniques. I wish there was some way we could link it and have it, when you correct one, it corrects the other. I'm sure there is, but we have other fish to fry at the moment.
Thank you. It's just more, I don't do the proofreading, so I just wanted to know if I started using that technique to make sure to let my wife, who does the proofreading, know.
Yeah, and what I would advise her that helps is build the list, make the list, and then it'll show you, you'll see it better, and then you'll know which pictures to go hunt down the spelling mistakes, delete the whole thing, and remake it once you're done,
Yes, because I get a couple of spelling errors with voice to text.
I have spelling errors if I'm typing, if I'm speaking. There's nowhere for me to hide with that. But so I hear
No,
you.
I get the hose bibs were not inspected, and it comes out the husbands were not inspected.
That's great, Ed. I love it.
Hey, Dylan, can I
Thank you.
ask one more question before you
Yes.
go?
Yep.
Last week you showed us the folder for the inspection. It was like the folder in our computer from I think you were in client property information. Yep. My
Yeah.
question, yes, this guy here, the directory.
Yep.
Where does that save? And if it saves on my desktop and I move it to a hard drive, so it's not on my desktop, will that screw up the report?
Yeah, I think it will screw up your report, but that's a bit more of a Steve question. And whenever you download Scribeware, on your, there's on your desktop, there's you should see a folder that says Scribeware, and that's where we're storing all that data. And you know, in theory, you could like find this and like go into it right on your computer. But you don't want to, you could copy that directory and save it in the cloud or whatever. That wouldn't mess anything. But if you move that directory somewhere else and went to open that report, it's possible that it wouldn't open right. I mean, it doesn't know where to find that data then.
Okay. So if I want to clean off my desktop, then the best way to save those would be to save the PDF and let people know the HTML
honestly, I
link
think
probably
what
will be broken.
you could ask Steve just to be sure, but I'm pretty sure you can just go delete all that stuff because it's all backed up in the cloud. And if it's gone, then you'll go to open it and you wouldn't be able to open it if you were not internet connected. But as long as you're internet connected and you go to open up an old report and the data is no longer on your device, it's going to go talk to the cloud and pull all that stuff up.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know is if I delete this, will it be gone for the client when they're clicking on that HTML link? If it's not going to mess anything up, then I'm not as worried. But yeah, I was about to take my whole computer memory.
Yeah, the client is looking at what's been published to the cloud. So messing with this will in no way impact the published link. It's just the data that's stored on your device. And so if you were to open the report and go to edit the report and you had deleted that file and you weren't on the internet, I don't think you could fiddle with that report until you get internet connected and get everything synced back. And then you could edit it and republish it.
Awesome. That's my question.
And everybody know about this? This is a good thing to know about. Right below the cover page, the report directory, you click on it and that will open up a whole folder. Sorry, it's on my other screen behind millions of things, but this will open up all the pictures and media that you used in a given report. So that's all the data that we store. Good question. Hey, Matthew made it. How are you, Matt? Matthew Scott. Good to see you, man.
Hey, so Dylan, I was going to say to Ed's question before about the photo or the caption editing. What kind of are you use iPhone or Android?
I use Android.
Okay. So if you're using the Gboard, there's what I found to be helpful is to I got all of those common mistakes programmed into my dictionary where I can see the mistake. I see when it says husbands, I can click on it and the top correction will be hose bibs. And so I try to fix those as I go because I don't want to, I would leave them in there if I try to do it from home.
Tim, our next meetup, can you give us a little Gboard review for us and we could kind of go over
do that.
That would be amazing.
Tim, I need it. I need it bad. Really bad.
I love it.
My New York accent really ruins Gboard.
That's great.
And that's what I always hated the voice to text because I'm like, well, if I say trust and it says trust, that's not just some of them are more than a couple letters to change.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, I'm going to spend 10 minutes here just trying to get on the right letter and change it. But if you can put in those replacements, it doesn't change the way it reads your voice, but it lets you fix them really quickly.
So thank you. The other thing, Ed, that I would actually love is maybe you could show us. Your game is fairly strong on the WPMA 33 in Scribeware. Are you using that?
Yeah, I'm using that.
Okay, because I think Mike Patton could, you're using it every day, so I'd love to link you guys, and Mike wants to use it every day, and you're using it every day, and I think
Me and Ed supposedly learned this at the same time. We didn't both learn it.
we got it at the same time, Mike. But anytime, well, I can go over what the good and the bad, what I found.
Thank you.
Well, and that could be, I'd love to see too. So maybe the next meetup, Tim and Ed, you guys could show us some things. I mean, Tim, I'm all ears on how to start dialing in when I say barge rafter, it never gets it right. Annabid beetles, there's like certain words I like dread speaking because I know it won't get it right. And I know there's got to be a way for me to like coach it and make it better. I've just been impatient to deal. So that's great. We got some good stuff for the next meetup. If you guys are game, I'll
no, if I can help any way to help anybody, I'm always down, but I'm always need more learning and more correction.
You're the best, Ed. Well, cool guys. It was fun seeing everybody. Good meetup. I hope everyone got a few good little nuggets, and we'll try to keep them coming. Sorry, I got to go pick up my kids, but it's not raining, but they're probably standing out.